started a couple of minutes early to get the ball rolling. I'd like to thank you all for turning out tonight. My name is Jim Caulfield. I'm the editor and publisher of ThePerryNews.com, and we're happy to be here sponsoring this event. Mary Murphy at the library has been a cooperative partner. I want to thank the candidates for their attendance. It looks like we'll have 10 candidates tonight, so we've got the majority up here now. The ground rules are simple enough, I think. We'll start, and this will apply to all the candidates. We'll start with a 1 to 2 minute introduction. We ask the candidates to state state 1 or 2 things they think are critical for voters to know when going to the polls, to know about themselves. That'll be followed by kind of an open question and answer. I see some people, I've got some questions here on cards, and if anybody'd like to submit a question on a card, it's not too late to do so. You can also raise your hands, and I've got some questions too, so we'll see how things go. Rather loosely organized, kind of like the Perry News. So let's start. We've got our Dallas County Board of Supervisors candidates up here. I'll just introduce them. Starting at the far end is Brianna Moorman, Dawson Mayor, running for, I think it's 2nd District? District 1. And next to her is Brad Golightly, who's the District 1 incumbent supervisor. Next we have Kim Chapman, District 2?
3. Those are the only numbers you'll need to remember tonight.
Oh, 1s and 3s. We've got Michael Walrod in purple, independent candidate for District 3 supervisor. Next to Robert Greenway, also an independent candidate in District 3, and Pat Stalter, the Democratic candidate for District 3. I'll be assisted with timekeeping by John Purdue. And Robin McCauley has been a great help as well in getting things. Opening statements, please. Tell us a little about yourself and 1 or 2 things you think are critical for voters to know about you before going to the poll.
2 minutes, 2 minutes?
Yes, please.
Well, I'm Brianna Moorman. My hometown and my current town that I am in is Dawson. I'm a graduate of Perry High School here. I obtained my Bachelor's of Science degree in Child Law and Family Services from Iowa State University. I've worked for a couple of nonprofit agencies locally here at the retail pharmacy, and I'm currently working for Heart of Iowa Community Services as a jail diversion and service coordinator for mental health services. I've always been in a career working for others, helping others. I was also a volunteer vice president and eventually the president of the Humane Society of Perry. I did that for a total of 6 years, and I'm currently the mayor of Dawson, which has given me 7 years experience as an elected official. I have a passion for helping people, and I would say that I'm here to listen to the concerns of Dallas County citizens, to work for them and to learn the ropes of being a supervisor, but being a supervisor that best represents you guys. Can I ask, what else did you just give a brief overstatement of myself?
Yeah, 1 or 2 things that voters, critical things for voters to know.
Okay, so I would say 2 things that I would say for you to keep in mind when going to the polls is to know that I'm here to listen and to be a representative of you and to take what you say and your needs seriously and to take those back with me to the board. And some of those needs that I have heard is an increase in the board number to 5. I'm hearing a lot about road improvements being wanted, and in order to compensate for the increase of number of board members, I do think that we would have to do a pay decrease in the supervisor salaries to then compensate for that.
All right, well, my name is Brad Golightly, and I grew up in the Van Meter area. Graduated from Iowa State University, and I first came to Perry in 1985 and worked for the Bren National Bank here in town. I've also worked for an Iowa import-export company. It's a Rouen company in Des Moines. I've also worked for Lutheran Brotherhood as a insurance and financial consultant. The company is now private, as all mergers have occurred. I was first elected to county supervisor in 2002 because people asked me to come and run for this position. And again, why I'm running this time is because people have asked and encouraged me to continue. Excuse me. A couple of things that are important for you to know is that I strive to work in a team environment, hold the team together at the county level, and we all work together to try to keep our county tax levies low.
Okay. My name's Kim Chapman. I'm the incumbent Republican representing from District 3, representing all of you. And a little bit about myself. I'm what you could call a Dallas County boy. I was raised I was born in Dexter, Iowa, at a little hospital, it no longer stands, and was raised in the Adel area. Graduated from Adel DeSoto High School. Actually, it was Adel High School at the time, and I'm a Vietnam war vet. Never served in Vietnam, but I was in during the war. And served 4 years on honorably being discharged. I came to work as a public servant for you folks as a EMT with Dallas County Ambulance Service. Spent many hours here in Perry working, as a matter of fact. And that was in 1979. In 1979, I was asked to develop and implement and then direct an EMS system for Madison County, and I did that for 5 years. After that, I was asked by a public official in Des Moines to consider starting a private ambulance company there. So I've been involved in EMS all those years. Midwest Ambulance Service is the company. It's in existence today as a private paramedic ambulance service. My wife and I own other medical related companies, and we have 4 children and 24 grandchildren, and most of them fortunately live in the area. Well, a lot of them live in the area, with 11 or so living in Texas. So things I guess to know about me is I'm an open book. I have a track record as a conservative, social as well as fiscal conservative Republican. You'll learn through. Okay.
I'm Michael Walrod. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. First of all, I live south of DeSoto with my wife, Tanya. I'm 62 years old and resided in Dallas County since the age of 5 when my father opened up a family business, which I was a part of from the age of 5 until we sold in 2016. 7 days a week and 80-hour work weeks are a norm for me. In getting elected, I would not have a problem making this a 40-hour-a-week job. I'm an ordained minister through the Open Ministries, and my faith and spirituality are very important. I participated in dirt track racing for years, and I thought when I got out of it, I got smarter, and then I got into the political arena. Running for supervisor has been something that's been on my mind for about 12 years, and I finally decided it was time to do it after a person that ran against Kim in the past told me last August he wasn't going to run. I was always raised to put others' needs before mine, and I will do that when I'm in office too. While serving, I will always be accessible and approachable to the hardworking taxpayers of Dallas County and also to the employees of Dallas County. At all times, I will listen to the concerns of all. I will watch and see what is being done and what can be done to make sure your tax dollars are being used wisely. I'm very outspoken, but when I do speak out, I have good cause and reason to. If proven wrong, I'm not afraid to admit it, and I can be convinced to change my mind and my opinion on things if I think it's best for all. There are many things in the county that I find that need to be looked at and improved, and one of the biggest is the HR department. If you have an HR director that is not accessible to the people and that the employees do not trust, you have a major problem. Employees, much like the citizens, I feel, don't have a supervisor or an HR director they can go to with their complaints and problems. I'm told when an employee does go to them, they hear the words eliminate or outsource, and are also told go ahead and quit, as we have a stack of applications this high. I've driven over 6,000 miles in the last few months talking to people, and they are tired of the good old boys club that we have serving us now. Phone calls are seldom returned. They can't ever be told when a supervisor will be in office other than Tuesday for the weekly meeting. Well, okay.
My name is Robert Greenway. I live in DeSoto / Van Meter area. Just moved right outside of town. I am a University of Missouri graduate. I have now lived in Iowa 30 years, so I guess I'm more Iowan than I am Missourian. Makes a difference. I recently got married for the second time. I had $2 to graduate at Van Meter. I'm pretty specific. I did not want, never thought about running for local board of supervisors. I was on the DeSoto board, city council. Several of us, Brianna, myself, and 3 people from Perry, pushed the local option sales tax. We all had 25 all of a sudden. This actually was hindered by all 3 board of supervisors. $13 million worth of tax revenue is generated because of this every year. Right or wrong, each town gets to decide what they're using for the money. We spent a long time getting 2,200 signatures. We had 1 person abstain from putting it on the ballot. 1 person said you got to change the laws. 1 person wouldn't even sign the petition. We just went on the ballot. That's how I got started in looking at the local sales tax, and I also decided to run for supervisor. Anyway, want to increase the road crew? It's definitely needed. They're really pushed. I want to bring in a fire marshal to help the local the volunteer fire departments. They need it. I, like Brianna, we've agreed about this. Don't know what the other candidates are. We want to cut the supervisors' wages 20%. I also believe that we're going to go to 5.
I'm Pat Stalder. I've been a resident of Dallas County since 1972 when I was hired to teach middle school reading and language arts at Adel. And it was Adel then, and then it was Adel DeSoto, and then it's Adel DeSoto Minburn, and I retired from there in 2006. I was able to teach in Des Moines for 8 years after that. So my first year of teaching was actually in Omaha. So I had 43 years of teaching, and I loved it. I participated, I was very much engaged in the Teachers Education Association, ADMEA, and even at the state level, ISEA. And I saw how it went from, we used to call it collective begging, to collective bargaining. And I think that that's a model that works, and it worked for 40 years. And so I'm sensitive to public employees and what can be resolved in a negotiations process. It wasn't always easy. There were a whole lot of hours put in. There were times when I thought, is this really worth it? But I think that my record in serving in that regard, I garnered and maintained the respect of the administration and the school board, because we would sit down and we'd openly discuss what are the issues. And it wasn't just money, and it wasn't just insurance. There are working conditions, and all workers are entitled to dignity on the job, and they're entitled to be heard. And I think a whole lot of people don't think about how many county employees they are. These are our neighbors, and we kind of depend on our local community. We depend on the county to give us those people, to invest in the county. And so that'll be a real consideration for me. I have, in my conversations, and I've been out listening to people. Sorry, time? Sorry. Okay, maybe someone will ask me that question about public health.
You and me both.
So we have at least 2 ordained ministers on the
I'm not
Not me.
ordained, I'm commissioned.
oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Okay.
In my denomination, seminary would be required for ordination, but commissioning was a 3-year learning program and mentorship. So you can call me Pastor Pat if you want to, but nobody does except.
Any other ministers we should know?
Well, I can sure do some preaching if you want.
And he does.
It's been mentioned, but, well, Brianne, you mentioned expanding the number of supervisor seats to 5. And I hear that a lot. Several of the note cards had that question. That was going to be my first question to you guys too. Tell us your opinion on that, whether it's a good idea, what the costs and benefits might be to an expanded board of supervisors.
I'll start this one. I am for increasing to 5. A couple of years ago, I did go to a couple of meetings and presented with several other mayors to the Board of Supervisors. We had a letter and some signatures to increase to a board of 5 that was declined. And so fast forward now a couple of years, and I do see that that is a want from Dallas County citizens. I do believe that there is or was a petition going around collecting signatures to present that to the board again. So I do know that it's a want, and I really do think that it's a need because as it is, 2 Board of Supervisors are a quorum, and so that kind of slows the process of things, work only being done on some things at meetings, which kind of slows the process of getting action. So I am for and think that it's necessary.
Well, there is a prescribed process or 2 that allows a change to happen, and primarily, I believe that the process, much the way the sales tax penny came to fruition, was through a petition process from the citizens, and then presented to the board, and then allowed to come to ballot, and then people get to vote on those things. And so that would be my preferred method that things could change. My personal perception of having 5 supervisors is kind of a 2-edged sword. It would be good to have others to bounce things off of and to share ideas and get more input on some of the considerations. But depending on how, whether it's the form of government or the districting, or if they're all going to be at large, some of those kinds of decisions need to be decided by the people. But at this point, we live in a district and we're voted on at large. If 2 more supervisors were to come to the table, where do you think they're going to come from? They're probably going to come from the southeast corner of the county. And I think that our rural population in particular, and places like Perry and our rural communities, begin to lose some of their influence in what happens in our county government.
Well, I would agree with Supervisor Golightly in his comments. We did have a meeting with the mayors. They presented. We had a public meeting, as a matter of fact, and it wasn't all unanimous from those there that they wanted to see a 5-member board. There was opposition to that move as well. So I think the best approach is the petition approach as well. If the majority of the citizens want 5 supervisors, there is a method to accomplish that. I think one of the disadvantages of 5-member supervisors with a 5-member board, as you've heard tonight, is it takes away the transparency of government. You're going to have 2 supervisors meeting, discussing, deliberating, planning, plotting, whatever you want to call it, before action is taken in a public setting. Now, I can meet with Supervisor Golightly if we had a 5-member board, Brianna, whoever the board members are, And then I could go and meet with Mr. Walrod if he happened to be another supervisor and see, there's no transparency then to the public. So you don't get the opportunity or have the opportunity to hear the deliberations that go into decision making. And I think that's one of the pitfalls of a 5-member board. You see it all the time with city councils, if you're paying attention to it. It's a good example of how that transparency is dissolved. So I'm a transparent candidate, transparent supervisor. I have nothing to hide. I want you to hear what my thoughts are. And so I would support whatever the public wants, the taxpayers want, but for the board to say we're going to put it on the ballot, I don't think that's the appropriate method.
I'm for the 5 supervisors. You go to Adair County, which has a population probably a quarter or maybe a little bit more than Dallas County. They have 5 supervisors. I think for the size of our county, the population, 5's ideal. My thoughts on it is you'd have 3 districts and 2 at large. And we are in districts, I feel that we should vote in districts. That if the District 3 should vote for District 3 supervisor, District 1 for the 1, and so on. To me, we're all at large right now. There's no districts. It's just the division they set up to say we're districts, but we're not districts. It's at large. It's all at large. The 5 supervisors, I think, would come around where you'd have when we have a 2-to-1 vote. You got a chance of it being 3-to-1 or 3-2, 4-to-1 or whatever. I think that for the citizens, it's the best because I think you will get what the right vote on most issues in that. Robert?
Okay, I support 5. I didn't because it wasn't explained very much why they were getting $57,000 here and $25,000 in Guthrie and $35,000 where there's 3 in Warren County. Without a salary decrease across the board early before it goes to 5, I'm not crazy about it, but I will support it. I also have worked hard on 3 petitions, and Mr. Golightly and Mr. Chapman don't realize how much work it takes. So if I'm elected to the Board of Supervisors and 1 other cooperative supervisor, we'll put it on the ballot. And it's going to cost. It will cost the citizens. But we got to drop it at least 20%. Brianna and I talked about this. And by the way, 5, there's going to be times that you're going to be missing. Have a person you can keep doing work. So that's how I feel about it. But once again, I do approve 5 if we get the salaries down.
I haven't put in my literature 5, and the more I've talked to people and become more aware of you have a mindset about what the county is like, and when you've lived here since '72, but I was told by somebody a few weeks ago that a Democrat couldn't get elected in Dallas County, and I thought, well, that really doesn't seem right. But if we were by districts, I'm pretty sure, well, from what I feel anyway, that Perry would have a Democratic representative. They've got a strong history here. But as long as supervisors are elected at large, yeah, there's a real good chance, traditionally. So I think that 5 makes sense, 3 from districts, and maybe they would have to be redrawn by population, but similar to what they are, but consider not just geography, but population. And then 2 at large. Maybe, I know school boards have done that, as a balance. I've watched school boards, and yes, they got information ahead of time, and they could ask clarifying questions. If I am elected and I'm on a board of 3 or 5, I will not be, the word I want. I will not be conspiring behind the scenes, but I will be clarifying. I would like to be able to make calls. The one county supervisors meeting that I sat in on, not very long ago, I felt like there was a whole lot of time where nothing was being said, and I thought, there's some heavy questions hanging in the air that nobody's even asking, and I really didn't understand it well enough, so I'm not criticizing anybody, but it felt like it was slowed down. As a former teacher, I believe in homework, and I believe in doing your homework. So if you have information, if information is delivered to the supervisors, whether they can talk to somebody else about it or not, they better be clarifying through the county attorney or something like that. So I'm definitely in favor of audit and reducing salary to make that financially feasible.
Jim, I forgot, this is for the group. The auditor, this county is now over 60,000. In 2022, we will be going to districts, and you're only going to vote for that district, or there'll be a couple at large. By state law, it happened up in Dubuque County. So it's going to happen no matter what.
Thanks for that. And thanks everyone for the answers. Here's one a little more open-ended. Another submission from, in fact, this was asked several ways. What would you say is the greatest need, or the 3 greatest needs, you can answer this as you choose, in the county? Let's start with Pat this time.
I appreciate that. I would say that we always have to have not just a reaction to infrastructure needs, but a long-range plan for infrastructure. And for me, water and water quality, what's running into our rivers and streams and what's coming out of the tap are all a consideration. And so that is, you don't ever want that to just be reactionary. I'd like to see a long-range plan for both of them, you know, for roads and all the infrastructure. I personally, I feel strongly about the public health. It's kind of like insurance. I have fire insurance. I don't ever want to have to collect on that. That would be a nightmare. But our public health, they're our front line against epidemics. They're people that, you know, I talked to people in Minburn the other day, and they said, oh, we count on public health nurse because when we've had our surgeries, we had somebody that could check on it. It's my understanding that the public health department in Dallas County has been shrinking at the same time that our population has been growing. And that's a concern for me. And I would have to know more to have the plan, but those are 2 things that I feel very, very strongly about.
I think there's several very important things, but to isolate it down to a couple. I don't know about any of you all in the room, but we had a total reassessment on property values. Mine actually doubled. Okay, 10 years it hasn't been reassessed. And tax assessor's a great guy, but he wasn't told to reassess a property 5 years ago or whatever. I don't know exactly what happened there. But 10 years, mine went from, one property went from 800 to 1,700. There's going to be a big boom to a lot of the schools because of that. And the schools need to work, which is out of the realm of the county supervisors. It has nothing to do with county supervisors. They get 50% of the dollars. And we need to look at that as cooperating between the Board of Supervisors and some of the school boards to see if they can reduce their levy, because a lot of people got slammed. And it's primarily because the tax assessment went up big time.
Pick 3 of them out of everything, of all my concerns is pretty tough. I agree with Pat on the public health. I'm not going to get into that right now. There's a lot of problems in that department that need to be taken care of. The tax breaks and abatements, they got to stop. But the deal with Apple, 50 employees and how many millions tax breaks, ridiculous. It's coming out of our pockets to make up for that. It's time for people to realize that. These people live in the tax abatement house. Who's taking care of what they're not paying? You and I. The expansion has to slow down. I don't care. You're going to be paying double of what you're paying now 5, 10 years from now. If not, believe me, it'll happen. Another thing, the big problem, fair wages for the county employees. The supervisors we have now think these people ought to work for $11, $12 an hour. they're worth more than that. I can't, you know, their salaries keep going up, whether workers get 1-2% raise. It's ridiculous. I always believe that you pay a fair wage for a fair amount of labor. We're paying some high salaries for nothing, and it's time for that to be changed. And if I get elected, I will call those officials out on it. They may say they only answer to the board or on their budgets, but they'll tell you they got to answer to the citizens. I want to be that voice for the citizens.
Well, first of all, you won't hear speculation or anything coming from me that's non-factual. You've heard a lot of innuendo tonight and a lot of hearsay, perhaps. There's not many, if any, that I know of that are making $10 an hour working for the county.
I didn't say it. I said that you want them to work for that.
Well,
there's a difference. I didn't say you were.
Okay, but you don't read my mind. You don't know. I think the proof, again, is in the facts. It's how I vote, and what we've done to increase the benefits and wages for the county employees. We've hired outside firms to come in and consult to give us the wages. Now I want to get back to the 3 items that I have. The first is, I think the county, and I've introduced the concept to the board, and it's been adopted by the board, and I've started visiting with some of the mayors in the communities to collaborate with the Dallas County cities to plan, develop, and implement a smart growth plan for Dallas County to assist with the proper management of the explosive growth that we have in the county. If we don't do that, then the developers will determine what this county is going to look like. We have a rich heritage here in Dallas County. I want to preserve that. That's one. The second is I want to continue using conservative fiscal management principles, business principles, to keep our taxes low. You don't need to be taxed more than you are, but some of the issues that are driving those tax levies are out of the Board of Supervisors' control. We don't assess the property. That's your county assessor, and he's, you know, that's perhaps another issue. But I want to keep the taxes low while we still exceed your expectations for services that we provide. And I think we've done a great job in doing that. And the third is I want to continue to work to make Dallas County an even better place to live than what it is today. I am very proud of the Dallas County, the county I live in, and the county I represent. I'll get back to my point later.
All right. Well, to keep up with all the impending growth and expansion of more and more people is certainly right at the top of the list. And there are several programs actually that are designed to help deal with all of those things. Other things that are important are our participation in some regional projects. One of those types of things is watershed management authorities. We have, you know, the raccoon rivers that run through our county. We're invited to participate in a couple of those watersheds, and actually every little watershed that there is, we've been invited to participate. So it's important that we participate as much as we're comfortable, or to a degree, in the big ones, I think, or where the keys are, and allow those to function and facilitate those. Some of the more immediate or local types of things, of course, we need to finalize the law enforcement center project. I think we're on target to have that completed and maybe be into the building in the middle of summer next year. And so there are a lot of aspects to that, but also to facilitate the ongoing space needs in our county. As we have more and more people, we have not necessarily more and more employees, but the treasurer's office is a good example of the driver's license section, where we have more and more people coming and going through those spaces, and quite frankly, we're just out of space where we currently are. So there are questions like that that we need to facilitate into the future. Another thing that's on the table is that this next year we'll be doing a conversion of our mainframe information system to a different system. So that's going to be a long-term, at least an annual process. And so facilitating that will be important.
All right, so the greatest needs that I'm seeing in the county currently is communication with your county employees, but also with the Dallas County residents. I would also say, just wanted to touch base, I guess, on public health department. Since it's already been talked about, I'll just be brief on that. There's just been a loss of a large number of employees, several that have not been replaced, so just sort of digging in to get some information on that. It's a great need in the community, and so finding out what's not working there and what do we need to do to get that fixed. And also I would say being proactive, so what could we have done to be proactive in regards to the public health department, but also being proactive with other aspects, being proactive with replacement or repairs of roads or whatever else may need to be looked at. And I also would say local option sales tax money, making sure that that's being used effectively, making sure it's being used for what voters want to see it used for. I very much believe that local option sales tax is the people's tax, and that we should have input from them how they would like to see that spent, and making sure it's being utilized to the best of its ability.
We're a little ahead of schedule. Other questions from the audience?
Did I have any time left?
No.
Well, there'll be time for closing,
okay.
closing comments, but I don't want
Same as everybody else, Bob.
I don't know, he was talking
Good try.
about.
Yeah, I have a question, and really, anyone can feel free to chip in. It's been brought up briefly and brought up in the audience, and I've had people mention the condition of the roads and the road department, the number of people employed by the road department. I wonder if we could have everybody say a word or two, or what they would, what their position would be on the county road department.
May I interject? And again, just for kind of the sake of fairness, let's do it this way. We'll say Michael, Kim, Robert, Brad, Pat, Anna, in that order, if you please.
The roads are one of my biggest concerns. As I said, I've drove probably 6,000 miles or more in the last 5 months in Dallas County, and it hasn't been just on pavement. The farm to market roads, some of them in the eastern part of the county, are ridiculous. There's lawsuits waiting to happen. They go out and they have the guys stick up a flag where there's a hole washing out in the road. A week later, the flag's gone. I've seen it. We do not have a road construction crew. We got a road maintenance crew. They send them out to try to repair something. 6 months later, we have a downpour, it's washed out, it's back to the way it was. We need to repair them. The roads need to be graded more often, not pulling a blade behind the dump truck that our engineer now has for the great idea, and it doesn't work. It pushes everything off to the side. You need to build a crown in the center of the road. You don't need to narrow them, which I also have heard has been wanted to do, that there's a road by Woodward, they wanted to cut 23 foot. You can't get a combine down that road. The bridges and roads need to be looked at heavily in this county. Needs improvements, especially in the western part, excuse me, not the eastern, the western part. Those people paid taxes for hundreds of years, some of those, 100 years, some of those families, and it's like they're forgotten.
Well, like Mr. Walrod, I drive those county roads frequently myself, and I spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks after I've heard some of these complaints on the county roads and meeting with the engineers of the secondary road department. I don't find our roads to be in the shape that Mr. Walrod is insinuating they're in.
I'll bring pictures.
Well, for the most part, the roads are in good shape. Supervisor Golightly will maybe talk about, I don't want to put him on the spot here, but he may talk about some of the paving projects, overlaying projects we've had in the northern part of the county, in the western part of the county. But those projects are ongoing as the funds are available. But again, drawing in roads, there's a method and a reason to do that. And I have complete trust and faith in our engineers. We got two of the best engineers in the state of Iowa working for Dallas County. Can the roads be improved? Sure, they can be better. But to say that they're a disgrace or something of that nature, drive on your surrounding counties' gravel roads
I have.
and then make a comparison. I didn't interrupt you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Robert, please.
This is a switch. I agree partly with Walrod, partly with Mr. Chapman. You go across several counties. Biggest farmer in this county says he rows them all, dries them all. Dallas County has some of the best overall. Do they need a lot of repair? Yes. And it's part of that, where I agree with Mr. Chapman. We got some real good roads. They've cut them down as far as help. The scrapers that Mr. Walrod was talking about, that's a farce. They spent, I don't know, $250,000. And the county engineer was the one who recommended it. I got several friends in the county road crew. They're slighted. Oh, and by the way, statement, I've seen their pay scales. Your county supervisors make a lot more. So believe it or not, they have been slighted. They need help. At least one more, maybe two. And that deal about those scraper blades, I haven't seen it. I grew up blading roads. We had lanes. They were the pits. It's really rough to get them up to speed.
Well, funding for our roads department is an important thing. And there's a prescribed formula in the Iowa Code that where they get their money in terms of so much from the rural levy and so much from the general fund. And then in addition to that, there are federal dollars that flow through for roads and for bridges. And then sometimes there are some state dollars that filter in as well. The federal dollars flow in through a regional, 8-county regional system, and the federal dollars have begun to soar up. And so they used to allow counties to borrow ahead and do a big project, but then they would have to wait a little while to balance out their accounts. When you do those types of projects, you have to do it according to federal guidelines and federal rules, which ends up costing more money. Most of our local monies are used for the road repairs that we do, that our local people do. Otherwise, the repavement projects, when they completely redo the road, are bid out by larger companies. That's what they do. We have not built a new paved road in Dallas County since I don't know when. We spend all of our money repairing what we already have. And so that's kind of the nuts and bolts of where we are.
When I explored this idea of being on a county supervisor, I knew that if I'm elected, there will be a steep learning curve, but having been an educator and believing in education, hate to speak to this issue in particular because I don't have the particulars. I would want input from across the county. I think that there are those people who are more than satisfied maybe with their roads. It's a big picture. Again, going back to what I said earlier, having a long-range vision and how you'll use the money not just this year, but next year and the next year and the next year. And that would be what I have to offer tonight's discussion. But I will be listening. That's who I've promised to be if I'm elected. Is I will want to hear and listen to all residents about these kinds of things.
Well, I will speak with a little bit of experience with road repairs by being the mayor of Dawson, but also with having several farm to market roads that the county maintains coming through our town. And I do know and understand that in order to do these road repairs, they have to be on a rotation. And I will speak to the fact that they are on a rotation of repairs or replacements in the sense of there's a farm to market county road coming through Dawson that needed to be repaired several years ago. When Dawson residents reached out to the county roads department, they said it was a 2019 project, so we did have a couple of fiscal years to wait. However, it looks like they're in the process of getting out there to start on it. So it is important that you have to have the funding for those projects, and in order to fund those projects, you have to rotate on where you put all of your time and efforts into. But I also think that it's important to do what you can when you can, so that you don't have quite as many large high-need repairs at once. So if you know that there's going to be a large fix, maybe split it in half one year when you have the funding and come back to it. So just important to make sure that you have the funding to do those projects, you're rotating it, and I know we all want paved roads or those repairs to happen really quickly.
Can I follow up? Probably the incumbents, but anybody can chime in. Is the funding trending up or trending down, and why?
Federal dollars are trending down,
And why?
and they're being more stingy. I don't know. We asked that same question, but the same with bridge dollars, and they changed categories that you can use those dollars in. You can't use bridge money to fix a road, for example, and vice versa. There are efforts from the federal level to make maybe bicycle and pedestrian transportation available, have that availability of some of those dollars for some of those purposes. So it takes away from actual road dollars, as you and I would consider them, to work on trails.
What about state dollars? Remaining same? Trending up, trending down?
Similarly, most of those federal dollars actually flow through the state, and the DOT divvies those out and makes sure that we use them appropriately.
Now, the caveat, though, is recently we've seen an increase in fuel tax. Those fuel tax dollars come back in a portion to the county, and those are used to improve roads as well. And that's been a godsend to us, really.
Yeah, those are some of the direct dollars, or local dollars, if you will, that the county uses for some of the repairs.
The other thing I would say on that, just public information, is these road construction plans, they're 5-year plans, and they're open to the public. When we discuss those and they're presented by the road department, anyone can come in and make input, give us input on those. So please do that in the future if you haven't in the past.
The question I have is for Mr. Chapman. In your discourse, you've indicated the rich heritage of Dallas County. And also the implication that the workers are above the $10 or $11 figure, that there should be worth more. And at the same time, you said, but we need to bring the taxes down. Is that correct? And what I'm looking...
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I'm looking for is for you to give us the specifics of how those two are supposed to work together. You're going to lower the taxes, but you're going to bring up the income for these state workers. How is that supposed to, what's the mechanics, the specific of how that's supposed to work?
You know, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that of me. There's different ways that happens. One of the ways is we see a lot of growth occurring in Dallas County. Most of you here, if not all of you know, Dallas County is the fastest growing county in the state of Iowa, and it's the 5th fastest growing county in the United States. That growth, that commercial growth, is what is helping us keep those taxes lower. So that allows us to increase wages, for one, and pay for those increases in wages. We don't want to be arbitrary in determining what those wages are. We did that for years, and I think the county did fall behind in the way we compensated employees. And so, as I indicated earlier, consultants were hired that are experts in this particular area, and they presented recommendations on where these wages should be. And the board acted on it and implemented it. And we're in the process now of reviewing some of those wages to make sure that we're still current with where we should be.
If there's an excess of money from all of this growth, then why did our property taxes go up 10 or 12%?
I would suggest, sir, you talk to your school district and your city, if you live in the city. It didn't come from the county. Since I've been in office, and I came in with Supervisor Golightly did, we've seen a 30% decrease in your property taxes at the county level. 30%.
That's not what I got in mind. Didn't ask anybody here.
Let me clarify my statement. The tax levy, your rural and rural basic and general fund tax levy has decreased 30% since I've been in office. That is a surety. Your taxes may not decrease because mine didn't either, and I understand that. And part of that is because of what was discussed earlier with the assessed values increasing. As you see growth in the county, as you see your home sales, your neighbors selling their property for much more than what they purchased it for, that drives those assessed values up.
If you look at your tax statements, on there it tells where each percentage of your dollars go. And in mine this year, 72% of my taxes go to the local school district.
Any other, the candidates, you're welcome to jump in any of this if you want to, or Boo.
Well, what was said triggered a question, because we brought in experts to tell us what we should be paying our employees. I don't know why the supervisors can't be looking at the cost of living and what it takes to live on a certain wage and make that decision. Do I need experts to tell me that somebody needs at least $15 an hour?
Well, I don't think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about looking at wages and being, I'm sorry, and being competitive with perhaps the Des Moines market and surrounding areas that we have to compete with for employees. It's not a matter of just what the cost of living is, because it could be.
So we should only raise them enough to get an employee?
No, I'm saying that we may be raising them much higher than that to get the employee, than just what a cost of living would be. Well, yes, we have. Yes, we have. Over the years, those raises, or those increases certainly have been much more than what a cost of living raise would be.
But you also said that there were years, there was a history of
Years ago,
paying
yeah.
suppressed wages too. So every raise isn't necessarily the raise that it looks like if it's, I'll call it catch-up money just for, you know.
Well, actually, it was catch-up, and we did catch up to where the market was at that given time.
Okay, well, I hate to cut off, but go ahead.
No, I just have one more question on this whole subject of wages. Actually, kind of a two-part. Can you speak to how many of the county employees are union employees, which would, I think, would negotiate some of that wage with you?
Mm-hmm.
And then can you speak to the turnover rate, your turnover percentage on an annual basis?
I don't know the numbers for either of those, but I can make some comments. You take the county attorney's department, for instance, and I think Mr. Reister would tell you there's very low turnover in his department. We have other departments in the county, EMS for one, that has a high rate of turnover for multiple reasons. But what I can tell you is a year ago, Dallas County had 7 collective bargaining units. As you may or may not know, the state legislature passed a law that requires those collective bargaining unit employees to certify that bargaining unit each year now. Last year, at that certification vote, we found 3 of our collective bargaining units saying they no longer wanted to be in the union, and they voted the union out. So we have 4 collective bargaining units in the county now. You're welcome.
If I might inject a thought, there are 2 This past year, our pay plan had a 2% cost of living increase for any employee, and a potential merit increase up to another 3%. So if people were doing their job or exceeding in their work, they could potentially have gotten a 5% increase this year.
And several of them did.
Okay, let's move then to the kind of the final round of closing statements. If there's any point you wanted to make in tonight's proceedings but haven't had a chance to, here is your chance then. And again, for fairness, let's say we'll go Pat, Brianna, Robert, Brad, and so on.
Well, in closing, if anybody's wondering why I chose to run, I believe that all the residents of Dallas County deserve choice. And it is not a partisan position, but if you have 3 supervisors from the same political persuasion, let's call it, you will have a certain type of perspective in your government. If you have variety, you're going to have a broader perspective of how to address situations. It might make the governing a little harder, but it should make for lively discussion. And I bring to this 43 years of working with young people. With 25 people in the room, if you're listening to everybody, you're probably going to come up with the very best. And 5 supervisors or 3, if they're all coming at it from very similar perspectives, you're going to get one type of reaction. And sometimes over the course of my 67 years, I felt like my ability to see various perspectives was a blessing, but other times it was a curse. But I do think that broad perspective, problem solving, vision creating, just governing, and I promise that I will listen to people, and I will not argue with constituents. That would not be my place as an elected official. The best I can do is promise to listen and consider that perspective when it comes to the decision-making or the process of planning. Thank you.
Yeah. So in closing, I would like to say that I as well would like to see a little bit more diversity on our board, and with that diversity, an increase in numbers, and that then allowing for some more communication to be happening, but then also more people for you guys to reach out to, more ears, maybe more accessibility. And I do promise that if elected, that I would be accessible to you guys. I would listen to your concerns and go about making decisions based on what my constituents are wanting. And with that, I just ask for your vote in November.
Jim, I want to thank you for getting this all together. It was well worth the time. Because I listen, don't always agree. I do like to argue.
I didn't say I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I just won't argue with constituents.
Oh, I argue with them all the time. A lot of things have happened, as far as I'm concerned, across this county. We're a growing county. County supervisors seem to think that they don't represent the cities. That really annoys me. I've heard it once. I don't represent them. I represent the outside, the unincorporated. I don't. I represent the entire county if elected. There's about a half a dozen people, city managers, a couple mayors, a couple clerks, a couple road crew guys. I ask when I make a decision or information someone brings up, I call 5 or 6 of them. What's your opinion? I form them from the people that's doing it. So if you want to talk about advisory board, fine. That's what I call it. But because I don't know a lot about certain things, and I check it out. I learned a lot about bonds. I learned a lot about tax abatements. It's a learning curve, as someone said. far as I'm concerned, I've got the people behind me that I talk to, and I argue with them. But they come up with some good ideas. And I've been around the Board of Supervisors, and it is a very homogeneous group. They don't come up with anything new.
Well, I would like to maybe touch on a comment that was made earlier on and regarding the sales tax, or the petition leading up to the sales tax referendum that we had. And it was mentioned that one of the supervisors wouldn't sign the petition. Well, that supervisor was me. And I was approached by Brianna and her mother when we were campaigning for the jail referendum with the sheriff. And they had asked me to sign their petition. And I told them that I wouldn't do that. And they asked why. And I told them because I was tax averse. I am not willing to sign something to intentionally raise people's taxes. And so that is a true statement. What I bring to the table is over 14 years of banking, insurance, and financial management experience. I've been asked to continue and run for re-election. I function with the others through stewardship, integrity, and accountability, grounded in the principles of Christian faith. And I work with the county management team in a conservative, common sense manner to keep our county tax levy low. Please vote for Brad November 6th.
Well,
I'm going to keep my closing brief. I agree with Robert on working with the cities. That's where the majority of the population in the county lies. I think we need to have more one-on-one with them and that. I'll listen to you. I'll watch what goes on. I'll speak up for you. I want to be the new eyes, the new ears, and the new voice for you. I'll be there for you, the citizens of Dallas County, and the employees of Dallas County. I've often said that I'm the valedictorian of the School of Hard Knocks. Every one of them hard knocks I've gotten back up and moved forward on, and continue to move forward on. I've always felt that life's a battle. When it knocks you down, you get back up, you brush yourself off, and you attack it again. And that's how I'll be in an office. I'll attack this job 100%. I'm green as it can be when it comes to being a politician, just like anybody else that's in elected office was when they started out. And sometimes I feel fresh and new is the best. I appreciate a vote on November 6th. I am Michael Walrod. I'm the Dallas County people of Dallas County's supervisor candidate. I want to be your new ears, your new eyes, and your new voice. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and Mr. Caulfield again for promoting and sponsoring this event. Tonight you heard from Mr. Greenway, and what I heard him say is he wants to raise your taxes. He wants to do that. He didn't say this tonight, but he said it in other public arenas, that he wants to use those lost or those local option sales tax dollars to help finance the Dallas County Law Enforcement Center. And you also heard him say he wants to grow county government in the past by creating a county fire marshal position. Again, raising your taxes. The county doesn't even have a fire department, but he wants a county fire marshal. Makes no sense to me. Then you heard from Ms. Stalter, who says she wants to increase the board members from 3 to 5. And she wants to do this because a board is restricted in their ability to converse outside of public meetings. Because 2 would constitute a majority, and you can't do that. Well, I agree with that. 2 does create a majority, and that's why we don't converse outside of public meetings. So basically what she's saying is she wants a non-transparent board of supervisor. And any of the candidates that is suggesting a 5-member board, that's one of the realities that you have to consider, is the transparency will go away. Then you heard from Mr. Walrod. who said he would call out public officials. I don't believe that's the management style I've never done that. I wouldn't do that. If there are issues to discuss, we'll discuss it, but I don't publicly try to humiliate or degrade anyone. I don't think that's a appropriate thing to do. If you want transparency in county government, if you want lower taxes, if you want your government ran as a business, I'm your candidate, and I ask sincerely for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thanks to all of the supervisors candidates. We'll have a little stage setting change here. Okay, now you can ask the questions from let's see, 3 other offices are represented here tonight. We've got the Dallas County Treasurer and the Dallas County Attorney.